Good evening, everyone. Just a second. Babe, can you come here for a second, please? Can you come here for a second? I want to see if there's any lighting in here, so just give me a second. I'm doing a person right now, but just give me a second, okay? Yeah, can you hold the back end of it and just fiddle around with the front of this light? I want to see if I have any more good lighting in here, including this. But just go up or down or up or sideways. I don't know. That's the thing. I shut it off. I just didn't think that would be more light. Okay, I do have a question though. That thing that a friend of mine gave me over there outside.
What's that?
That thing over there that a friend of mine from the do this whole back thing that's all white or something. Should I put that on? Maybe that'll help. That's the small one, the black one with the picture. This is a big screen thing.
Oh, yeah.
The one I got.
Oh,
See the plants?
yeah.
Oh yeah, I just figured it'd be more light, but this is the only light I've got. This other one don't work, so I'll have to unplug it. Well, maybe you can unplug it since you're there. No, no, on the bottom. Oh yeah, right there. What's that?
Have you watered this plant lately?
No, not yet. Maybe you could. I'm surprised it's still alive.
It's dying.
You could water it. Go for it.
Oh,
Okay, let me do it after I'm done. Let me do it. I try to figure out what I could do with the Grammys, and I think I did it, but I'm not too sure. I think I looked at it, looked for it. So you hear what Trump's doing to Colombian now?
I don't care. That guy is none.
He's
I
he's
have
gi-
nothing.
he's giving them tariffs because he doesn't want to get his illegal immigrants over there. Oh well. Yeah, I'll water that after I'm done here. So just close the door and I'll start doing this. You doing okay? Do you need any help from me? You don't need any help from me? There's your clothes in there too, so you don't need any help from me? No? Let me know, okay? I'm gonna do this podcast now, so you know what I need is a headphones, mic or a mic or whatever thing, but that costs way too much money. Unless if I do ask people, why don't you buy me this? Why don't you buy, yeah, even a car. Okay, let me know if you want anything. Already. Okay, love you, babe. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm back, and it's Kelly, and I apologize for everything here. So anyway, the guy I'm doing is Rolando Cruz. He was born in 1963. He's an American man who's known for having been wrongfully convicted. Wrongfully convicted. I've known a lot of people like that. Wrongfully convicted. It's only the DNA. Which, no. Were wrongfully convicted and sentenced to death, along with his co-defendants Alejandro Hernandez for the 1983 kidnapping, rape, and murders of a 10-year-old girl named Jeannie Negagra in DuPage County, Illinois. The police had no substance physical evidence linking the two men to the crime. Their first trial was jointly in 1987 on statement their statement were used against each other and the third party defended after appeals and the other court's actions during which they remained in prison on death row. Imagine being on death row and being in prison. I wouldn't mind doing that. I'm just joking. So anyway, each of the two men was tried twice. More Hernandez was convicted each time and sentenced the last time to life in prison. Cruz was acquitted in 1995. At the third trial, after the sheriff lieutenant reenacted previous testimony and now DNA evidence was introduced, excluding Cruz and Hernandez from that found at the crime scene. What was found at the crime scene? The state testimony dismissed all charges against Hernandez. That same year, he was already serving life in prison, serving his sentence in prison. Both men were freed in 1996. The state indicted 7 DuPage County law enforcement officials for conspiring to convict Cruz and wrongfully prosecution. They were acquitted, but Cruz and Hernandez and Stephen Buckley, one of the three original defendants, filed a civil lawsuit against DuPage County. In September 2000, the three men received a settlement from DuPage for wrongfully prosecution and conviction. Cruz was pardoned in 2002 by the Illinois governor after having served more than 12 years in custody on death row. Another man, Brian Dugan, already convicted of rape and murders of both of a child and an adult woman in separate events, had claimed in 1985 to have committed the crime. His DNA was later found to match that from the Nicaragua crime scene. Dugan was not indicted until 2005 by the DuPage County grand jury for the crimes against Nicaragua and pleaded guilty in 2009. He was intentionally sentenced to death after Illinois abolished the punishment. His sentence was commuted to life in prison with no possible parole. On February 25, 1983, 10-year-old Jeannie Nicaragua, born July 1972, was abducted and in broad daylight from her home in Naperville, Illinois. Suffering from a suffering from a flu, Jenny had been at home alone while her parents were at work and her sisters were at school. Her body was found 2 days later, 6 miles from her home. She had been raped and beaten to death. See, these people, whoever did it, I, I would kill him, yes, but it's his fault. But it is also the parents' fault or the sister's fault because they shouldn't leave a 10-year-old girl at home by herself. You comment and see if I agree, okay? Because you never leave a kid, especially a 10-year-old kid, at home by themselves, you know? So you comment and see if I agree. When Roland, when Roland Cruz, a 20-year-old known gang member from Aurora, approached the police with purpor- purported, purported information about the murder to claim the $10,000 reward. He became a person of interest because of his fabrication. fabrication. Several weeks later, Alejandro Hernandez, a high school dropout also from Aurora, came forward and said that the three people had murdered Jeannie and that he knew two of them, Stevie Buckley and Ricky. Ricky was never identified. Hernandez himself soon became a suspect. The police took Buckley's boots, which he was wearing the day of the abduction of the girl. See, this is how bad that the courts and all the government across the world are crooked. And I believe that because we have one right now. So I believe it. So that's just me. So the day of the abduction, the girl, to compare with the print found on the front door of the house, which had been kicked in to gain entry. Johnny Gorachak, a shoe print examiner in a DuPage County Police Crime Lab, included they did not match, but never completed a report about this result. Korachak, or whatever his name, later said that lead prosecutor and assistant state attorney Thomas Knight told him not to discuss the Buckley prints, not matching nor or lack of his report. Knight sent the prints of boots to the Illinois State Police Crime Lab, who also did not find a match. He next sent he next sent to the prints the boots to the Illinois State Police Crime Lab, who was also not find a match. Okay, I think I repeated that. He next sent the boots and prints to an expert in Kansas, who concluded there was no match. Finally, the prosecution submitted the prints and boots to the Louis Robbins and Antholo Pathologist, whatever, in North Carolina, said to be an expert on footprints. She testified that Buckley boots matched. See, this is how crooked they are. But watch when I read it more. Matched the print, and that she could identify identify the height and the race of the wearer by its Cruz and Hernandez and Buckley were indicted for the abduction, rape, and murder of Nicaragua in March 8, 1984. After Robbins was discredited in 1986 as an expert witness of FBI crime lab concluded it was its own test, affirming the reviews by the first three persons above. It contributed that Buckley's boots did not match the print. There was enormous public and political pressure on the DuPage County State Attorney Office to solve this highly publicized case. The police and prosecution came convinced that Cruz's guilt to lead Detective John Sam resigned in protest before the 1985 trial because he believed that the three men were innocent. In 1987, the three men, Cruz, Alejandro Hernandez, and Stephen Buckley, were charged with Jenny's rape and murder despite a death of physical and forensic evidence. At the joint trial in the three young men in 1987, two detectives testified that during an interview on May 8, 1983, Cruz had told them that he had a vision about the Nicaragua murder. He allegedly told them that Jenny's nose had been broken and that she had been hit in the head so hard that a depression was left in the grounds where her body was found. That she had been sodomized and that she had been left in a farmer's field. All the details from the crime that had not been made public yet. Wow. As visions and being convicted is two different things. But just watch. Cruz maintained he had never made the statement. There was no police record of it, and it did not been mentioned. It had not been mentioned during the indictment hearings 3 years earlier. Cruz and Hernandez were each convicted, but the jury deadlocked on Buckley. The state did not choose to try him again, and the charges against Buckley were dropped on March 5, 1987. Both Cruz and Hernandez were sentenced to death. by the jury. In November 1985, a man named Brian Dugan, related to any of these defendants, unrelated to he's not related to the defendants, was sentenced to two consecutive life terms without parole for two unrelated rapes and murders. One of the 7 year one of a 7-year-old girl, and the other was an adult woman committed in nearby Kane and near girl, and the other one rather committed in nearby Kane and LaSalle counties. He had pleaded guilty to the crimes to evade the death penalty, which, while in discussion on the plea deal, Dugan had his lawyer attorneys hypothetically that he was responsible, solely responsible for the rape and murder of Janine Nicaragua in efforts to avoid the death penalty. The prosecution rejected his proposal as they had not investigated him for the crime, and while withheld this information about another suspect, Dugan, having confessed from being in, introduced at the Cruz trial. Introduced at the Cruz trial, the the defense appealed the conviction of Cruz and Hernandez. The convictions were overturned on January 19, 1989, due to a prosecution error, and remanded to the lower court. The prosecution next tried Cruz and Hernandez separately. The county had accepted Dugan's confession, but rejected his claims to having acted alone. The prosecution maintained that Cruz was the rapist and that Dugan and Hernandez jointly committed the murder. As in the original trial, the prosecutions are rested in part of the likelihood that two shoe, two shoe prints below was with window below a window of Nicaragua home belonged to Hernandez and Cruz. A crime lab technician for the DuPage County Sheriff's Office, Paul Sahas, was due to testify to this at their retrials under separate prosecution, according to the Sahas testimony before the late before later before the later DuPage grand jury, the DuPage 7 grand jury. He asked the prosecution to be excused as the witness. Nike officials had told him that the prints were made by a woman's shoe size 5.5, or 6, small for either Hernandez or Cruz. The prosecution did not give this information to the defense as required by law. They put Sass on a stand, but did not ask him about the shoe size or the sex of the wearer. And information was not revealed at the trial. The Illinois Supreme Court upheld Cruz's second conviction and death sentence in February 1990. The courts found that the errors in the trial which occurred at every trial did not do not render the trial unfair. Hernandez's second trial ended in a hung jury when when he was tried a third time. The jury found him guilty but sentenced him to life in prison on May 17, 1991. Hernandez was sentenced to 80 years in prison. Cruz appealed again in December 1992, but the Illinois Supreme Court Assistant State Attorney General Mary Bridget Kennedy, who was assigned to defend against Cruz' appeal, sent a memo to Illinois Attorney General Roland Barris identifying her concern about numerous errors in Cruz's initial conviction. It includes two perjured testimony and fraudulent investigation by local officials. Burns disputed Kennedy's con- con- confrontation, claiming that he could not hold his judgment higher than the juror, and then it was his job to uphold a jury's decision. Kennedy resigned in protest, claiming I was being asked to help execute an innocent man. In 1994, Cruz's conviction was overturned on appeal. The county chose to retry the case again. During the third trial, the sheriff lieutenant who had testified regarding Cruz's vision at the first trial reenacted this previously testimony. He admitted to having testified under oath and said that Cruz had not made a statement. He also said that the DNA test excluded Cruz from his co-defendant Alejandro Hernandez as the contributors of the semen found at the scene of the crime. Crime scene. There you go. The DNA implicated Brian Dugan, who had already confessed to the crime in 1985. On November 3rd, 1995, a DuPage County judge acquitted Cruz and the basis of the reenacted testimony, DNA evidence, and the lack of any substantive evidence against the defendant. In December 1995, the charges against Hernandez, who had been serving time in prison, were dismissed by the state attorney. Following the grand jury prosecution, the DuPage County State Attorney Office indicted seven DuPage County law enforcement officials, Thomas Knight and two other prosecutors, and four sheriff's deputies. In December 1996, on 47 charges of conspiracy to convict Cruz despite being aware of exculpatory evidence, they were charged with perjury and obstruction of justice. The indictment rested on two main points. The first was two detectives had testified that Cruz told him that he had a vision of a murder tried that contained details only the killer would know. This matter was never recorded and included in a police report, but was endorsed still and persecuted by the prosecution. Secondly, they said prosecutions had concealed Brian Dugan's confession, while knowing that in concluded it concluded occurrence private details related to crime which indicated that the com- commute, committed the deeds in April 1999. The trial of the DuPage Seven became in June 1999. Each of the seven officials was declared acquitted by the Judge William Kelly. According to the Chicago Tribune in 2007, the case against the DuPage law enforcement officials established a legal benchmark in getting a trial, as it is highly unusual for prosecutions to be prosecuted for their actions in office. Since 1966, there had been 381 homicides convictions in the United States, reversed in the grounds that prosecutions knowingly used false evidence or withheld evidence suggesting innocence. Of these, 46 were tried in Illinois, which had the second highest total and twice as many as the state that ranking third, highest third. Only two of the cases, both were dismissed before trial. In 2002, Cruz and Hernandez and Buckley received a settlement from DuPage County for their wrongfully conviction. In 2002, Cruz was fully pardoned by Governor George Ryan. In November 2005, Dugan was Dugan was Nicaragua murdered. On July 20, July 28, 2009, 52-year-old Dugan pleaded guilty. His 1985 confession was made public for the first time on October 14th, and on October 7th, 2009, a jury determined Dugan was eligible for the death penalty, which under state law required that he qualified by at least one of his four conditions: that his victims was younger than 12, the crime was extraordinary, brutal, and heinous, and previous convictions for the last one other murder, or that the crime was committed during the course of another felony. He he qualified he qualified and all four counts, and the public outcry from the Cruz case resulted in Governor George Ryan declaring a moratorium on the death penalty in Illinois, asserting that the system was too frauded with errors. On March 9, 2011, Illinois Governor Pat Quinn signed the legislation abolishing the death penalty in Illinois, making it the law. So in Illinois right now, there's no death penalty. So And that's Canada. We have no death penalty either. So yeah, that's the death penalty. But see, the parents. I blame the parents, and I blame the kids. I blame the family for leaving a 10-year-old girl at home by herself. So I also blame the freaking other people, but it's the more blame is all those two. So, but yeah, that's just me. So, and this is the guy Rolando Cruz, and I guess Rolando Hernandez and Buckley, but this one's a Rolando Cruz case. So he got wrongfully convicted and sent to death row. He got sent to death row. They'll find out he was wrongfully convicted. So thank you very much and have a good day.